Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you, and welcome to our session on enhancing counseling using sustainable development curriculum and practices. I'd like to introduce our moderator and panelist for today, Dr. Deepa Tyagarajan. She is the strategic advisor for international recruitment programs and the director for global food systems and the value chain programs at the Michigan State University. So, Dr. Deepa, over to you, and have a wonderful panel discussion.
Thank you, Kritika, for that introduction. All right, we're going to kickstart our panel. It's my extreme pleasure and privilege to introduce our esteemed panelists. Dr. Satya Srinivasachari is a science educator at Purna Learning Center, Bangalore. She's spent more than a decade on the STEM fields. She actually integrates real-world experience as a researcher and her passion to teach and educate young minds to appreciate science. And she also happens to be the Royal Society of Chemistry teacher developer and a CK12 certified educator. The next esteemed panelist we have is Ms. Nandini Kaur. She's been in the field of education since '98, and she's currently the CAS coordinator at Shivnadar School, Gurgaon. And interestingly, she's been very focused on peoples and systems and how they interact with each other, be it in India or elsewhere globally. And her own schooling experiences have inspired her to delve deeper into creating opportunities around the world that would enable students to scale newer heights and rediscover themselves. And the other esteemed panelist is Ms. Sadhana Badrinath, who's been associated with Flame University for several years. She's the regional head of admissions and outreach. She lives by the adage of shaping lives and careers that has been her professional trajectory. She actually started her career as computer programming instructor of all things, but then she's moved on to running a really successful chemical industry, comes from a very diverse professional background, from entrepreneur to life skills facilitator, and also a co-founder of an academic ally. That's an organization that facilitates life skills to parents, educators, and children across schools in Bangalore. So she has largely orchestrated the canvas at Flame University. And in her current role, she advises students from 250 plus schools. And she's also, as are the other two, members of the IC3 SDG committee. All right, that's our esteemed panelists. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Right. Given what we are going to talk about today, enhancing career counseling and curriculum and education, towards sustainable development, it's very clear organizations around the world are using the United Nations SDGs as a framework to rethink education, curriculum, and also help students consider the purpose of SDGs and how might it align with their career aspirations. Next slide. Next slide, please. So what is this trying to do? It's actually trying to aim for impact, aligning with all SDGs, but at the core of it is your SDG 4 and then 4.7 that calls for, by 2030, all learners will acquire knowledge and skills that are needed to promote sustainable development, be it promotion of human rights, gender equality, culture and peace, global citizenship, cultural diversity, and culture's contribution to sustainable development. All of it is wrapped around this education for sustainable development SDG goal 4. Next slide, please. Right. So what is the relevance of SDGs to college and career counseling? SDGs serve multiple purposes, from setting targets from the world's most pressing sustainability issues to providing a common global lexicon for sustainable communications. However, for young high school students and new entrants to SDGs, you have to remember SDGs can also serve as a career guidance framework. So how do SDGs do this? So consider these points. Temporal reach. The SDGs extend all the way to 2030. We have another 9 more years. So they'll have relevant and increase in importance for at least the next 11 years. This means skills and knowledge developed in these first few years are going to stay relevant until 2030 and beyond, likely beyond. Right now, we're now talking 2050. So it's a long shelf life of skills and knowledge within any profession. Interconnectedness, that we know all of this very well. They're very interconnected, integrated. If the students want to start their career with a focus of one of the SDGs, it'll allow them to naturally expand and logically work towards other SDGs. They're also multidisciplinary. They cover environmental, social, economic issues that are widely relevant to a whole range of disciplines. So working on SDGs are going to give you opportunities to conduct research from people from all disciplines and understand cross-disciplinary teamwork very well. Geographic reach. These are globally recognized, right? So working and gaining experience and skills from one region or country is going to be transferable to other locations. Next slide. They're also multi-sectoral. They're relevant to civil society, to governments, to business, to academia and other sectors. Skills and knowledge developed in one sector is going to be transferable to another. And again, inexperience is not a liability in the case of SDGs because it just came into force, what, 5 some years ago? So it's unrealistic for educators or employers to expect any potential new entrant or hire to have years and years and years of experience working with SDGs. So this means our students are not going to be at a disadvantage when they're applying for SDG related jobs and opportunities. It literally is a blank canvas. And then in terms of alignment, SDGs are obviously aligned with other key sustainability and standards and programs. So working on SDGs is going to allow our students to gain experience in these sustainability standards and programs, expanding your skill set. And then in terms of funding, clearly funding for research and work related to SDGs is becoming more and more widely available. So organizations and individuals working towards SDGs are more or less guaranteed they're going to have access to financial resources. So next slide, please. So students can start off their sustainability career with a focus on one SDG, and they can transfer to others, and then they can use the guidance framework to evolve into an exciting career. But in order to do that, we have to consider the first thing, that's the education. Education is one of the bedrocks for the SDGs. In and of itself, quality education leads to significant sustainable development benefits for individuals, communities, and countries, and support accelerating global capacity to implement the SDGs. So addressing the challenges of SDGs are going to require new ways of education, new ways of learning, new curriculum. Curriculum, not as in, oh, I'm going to do something off on extracurricular activities. No, curriculum, core curriculum. New ways of doing things and making hard choices between competing options, and in some cases, bringing about profound transformations. So our learning institutions must drive technological, societal progress through transdisciplinary, transboundary research, discovery, knowledge creation, and adoption. Schools must attract and nurture talent, creativity, and make students the central players in national and regional and local innovation systems to demonstrate impact through meaningful collaborations. Speaking of collaborations, next slide, please. We're going to learn one of the successful collaborations that Satya is going to present out of Purna Learning Center. Over to you, Satya.
Thanks, Deepa, for the warm introduction. So first, before I start, I would like to thank IC3 for this opportunity. It feels great to be part of this wonderful session. I would also like to thank my school, my colleagues, my fellow teachers, and all the students at Purna who are actors in the stories I'm going to share now. And they also helped me to put together this wonderful presentation for all of you. So each and every teacher at Purna brings in their creativity and add flavor to the environment. Next slide, please. So as you see, the visionary behind Purna is Dr. Indra Vijay Simha, who started her Purna journey 28 years ago with 3 of her own children, and we are still continuing to explore. Indra is a teacher by herself, and she decided to explore homeschooling at that time when the education was completely in a different way. And because she believed that learning is a natural part of development in every child. So at Purna, we emphasize more on hands-on and experiential learning. Next slide, please. So Purna has a very informal setup. So this enables the children to respond joyfully and creatively to learning. We have very minimum restrictions on the children, and they actually have the luxury to move freely and explore. And we actually focus on quality education to children from all socio-economic background. So that's one of the philosophy where we have inclusivity, which is imbibed in Purna's philosophy. We also encourage a lot of creativity and collaborative effort to do any work and curiosity in all our activities. Sustainability, again, has been part of Purna culture ever since its inception. Reduce, recycle, and reduce, reuse, and recycle is the mantra in all the activities we do at Purna. So here I should say that I really feel proud and humble to say that as a school, we actually align with 5 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which I've just highlighted in this slide, more on quality education, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, and climate action. So the story I'm going to share today is more related to the United Nations SDG Goal 12, responsible consumption and production. Next slide, please. So what is Ragi? Let's just go from there. Ragi or finger millet, I think most of us know what it is. It's a cereal crop which is rich in fiber, mineral, and a lot of amino acids. And if you look at the history, the oldest record of finger millet actually comes from an archaeological site in Africa dating to 8th century AD. So that's where the history starts, collaborating from in all different disciplines. We start from history. So the story I'm going to share today is the journey of how Purna community integrated the farm to table concept in their curriculum, the key outcomes, and what are the learnings. The idea behind this study was based on Naithali, or basic education, a principle which is promoted by Mahatma Gandhi, which gives importance to the connection between head, heart, and hands. So the journey started from the whole school brainstorming and selecting the theme. So there was a lot of discussion among the students and the teachers that what is the theme we should select for this project, for the case study. And after selecting the theme as food, there was again a lot of discussion which went into deciding which crop could be cultivated. So there's going to be a lot of geography involved here, because this led to let the students to learn about what are the different regional crops, what are the conditions that is required to grow them, the water requirement, the nutritional content of the crop which they will be cultivating. So there was a whole lot of learning which we're connecting up many topics. So this started as a collaborative project between Azim Premji University and Pula Learning Center. Next slide, please. So finally, it was decided to pursue the regional crop because native to Karnataka, Ragi or finger millet, and Ragi requires less rainfall, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it's rich in fiber and amino acid. And with all these data collected, the project started in collaboration with Azim Premji University, and it was a year-long experiment to highlight the struggle of farmers. Then there was a lot of discussion among the students and the teachers. There were a lot of brainstorming session on caste, color, gender, in addition to academic subjects when this was happening. So what we should also see here is the students were not getting trained to be farmers. That's not the goal of this. Instead, they were getting math lessons by measuring and dividing their plot of land with their feet. So here I should mention that this project was primarily focused on middle school. So they had a plot of land which were divided for each of them, for each of the classes, each classroom. So there was a lot of math which was happening here. There were geography lessons which was happening, not in the classroom, but on the field, where they were understanding of the multi-cropping. What is multi-cropping? So why do you grow ragi? What happens if you're going to grow something else along with ragi? Are you going to increase and have a better yield? So maybe growing a tur dal is going to give you a better yield of ragi. So there were a lot of concepts which was discussed here. What happens if you're going to plant something like a marigold along with growing ragi and tur dal? Marigold is going to act as an insect repellent. So it's going to be like a natural process. And I should also mention that there were no pesticides used. It was all organic farming and organic manure. So science lessons again were happening here because there were a lot of composting lessons which was going on. So science was getting done for the students. Language lesson was happening, like Kannada being the native language. Language lessons were happening when there were a lot of folk singing happening during the harvesting. So the students were getting exposed to multiple things. It was math, geography, language, and science, everything integrated in this one project. It was just not a learning lesson for the children, but also the teachers, because at this point, the teachers could also realize and relate that there could be a lot of interdisciplinary thing which could be done by choosing a broader topic and working more towards it. And the other thing is students were also experiencing rural living in an urban setup. A lot of older methods of separations like billowing. Billowing is a technique where you separate, it is used even in paddy field, that you can separate the paddy from all the husk. So the same kind of technique was used for ragi, and the students were getting exposed to all the older techniques which are non-existent now. Plowing and tilling were also done using bullock carts. So this is something which was really enjoyable for the children and also for the teachers. Next slide, please. So now the overall goal of this project was to understand sustainability and simplicity. And it was also trying to dispel the notion that being a farmer is no less than any other profession, because most of the time what happens is when we are encouraging the children and we are counseling them, there's a lot of only the professions, like the key professions, which we think are key, but there are also opportunities for professions like where you can do a bachelor's degree in agriculture and you can be a farmer. There's no harm. It's actually no less than any other profession. So these are kind of thought-provoking of learning things, learning experiences which the students gain. So I'm happy to share that this project was presented in the plant-based education learning from context in Japan in December. And this project has also appeared in many newspapers and articles. I'm going to share some of the links which all of you can go and access. And you can read more about this project. You can see a whole lot of different pictures that, like some of the pictures, what you see in this slide talks about the student. They go and look at the harvest. They are trying to learn how to harvest it. Then they come back and they also try to write what they are observing in the farm. So this gives them a lot of thought about how to do the artwork related to it, how to comprehend what they have learned, come back and put it in words. They were also involved in community kitchen where they harvested the ragi, they came back and they tried a lot of new recipes with the ragi. I'm happy to say that there was also a cookbook which was released. I'm just not sure whether that's visible. Just give me a minute.
Satya, you have about 30 seconds to conclude.
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. So there was also a cookbook which was released. And so this definitely showcases the UN Goal 12. Next slide, please. So here I have to stop here because I have only 30 seconds. So if you're interested, then I'm going to share the link in the chat box after my talk. So you can just go back and read more. But I also would like to highlight that Pune has a lot of other initiatives related to many of the other SDG goals. And we have a project called Bija, which has a community education program designed for underprivileged or marginalized children. The work has been acknowledged in Deccan Herald in 2021. We also have an initiative called Samagama, where we invite guest speakers working on different environmental issues to give talks and workshops. this is again open to a broader community, and the goal is to promote sustainable and responsible living. So with that, I would like to conclude that there are always moments of reflections that help us move forward in this journey of integrating sustainability with our school curriculum. And we always look for opportunities to do it the more and more. We always try to look for doing more. With that, I would like to thank for this wonderful opportunity. And yeah.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much, Satya. I'm going to invite Nandini for the next presentation. And Nandini, you have 5 minutes. So try to get all those inspirational points within that time frame. Thank you.
Will do. May I have the next slide, please? So like my slide says, strengthening connections, people, knowledge, and systems. How do we do that at Shivnada School? By offering diverse opportunities to our students to engage and connect with the world through real and practical interactions, making them appreciate the real challenges the society faces. These practical processes help the students acquire global perspectives, make them conscientious, responsible, and more aware of their abilities and skills. Especially the service initiatives are designed and evolved keeping in mind the UNDP sustainable goals and following the principle of think globally and act locally. These experiences are much more than co-curricular, as they are holistic in nature, addressing important local issues, urging the students to step outside the defined domains of academics as well as non-academics, challenging them to understand and improve systems, employing their creativity, knowledge, using the available technology and resources. These experiences help our students evolve as individual learners, urging them to connect with the fellow members of their community. They work in groups for improving the social, emotional, and physical well-being of the society. Next slide, please. As the students address local challenges, therefore it becomes only more relevant. Why? Only more relevant that they get acquainted with the Sustainable Development Goals and design systems to address and resolve them. The students choose individual or group initiatives that focuses on a need, allowing them to learn, explore, discover, innovate, compelling them to change and develop fresh perspectives. The entire process makes them informed and reflective members of not only their immediate society, but also of the world. At the end, they become more aware of the choices they make. One such initiative is our community shop that aligns with the sustainable goal number 11 of sustainable cities and communities and sustainable goal number 12 of responsible consumption and production. The students under this initiative set up a community shop consisting of recycled old goods that they received from their community, ranging from clothing, shoes to kitchen items. The shop operated on the good old barter system and on returnable basis. Next slide. The students really enjoyed it as it gave them an in-depth knowledge of how a system, how a process works. Some of the important takeaways from this initiatives: what is a sustainable lifestyle, a sustainable community, scope of recycle and reuse, the impact of same on economic environment, how does it change production, supply, consumption, etc., changing mindset, social taboo. They really became more aware that reuse is something that is associated with a particular section of the society. Possible challenge, promotion of a sustainable living as a way of life in the larger community. Next slide, please. The next initiative that I'm going to talk about is focusing on sustainable goal number 5, that is gender equality. The initiative is called Samantha, or equality. What started as a forum to address homophobia soon spread its wings to address other issues and social prejudices such as disparity in gender roles, social expectations, etc., that further raises unhealthy attitudes and mindsets. The forum has been active on the Instagram and offers a neutral platform for expression. Now, as we come out of the pandemic, the forum members are aiming to have more active conversations and dialogues with the internal and external communities. Next, please. The key takeaways from this initiative was the deep-rooted ideologies, the social and economical changes over the years in the family systems mandates fresh perspectives, addressing century-old conventional non-relevant systems by spreading awareness, changing mindsets again, social taboos. A ripple is sometimes what is needed. Change will be a very slow process. The students become aware and knowledgeable through these real experiences that are well integrated with their academic and non-academic curriculum, helping them to become conscientious citizens of the world, a world that is so well connected and yet is on the threshold of being isolated at the hands of eccentric mindsets and ideologies. In the process, they realize the challenges of the real world outside of their secure environment and thereby learn to appreciate and respect the diversity owing to different social, emotional, or economical backgrounds. They aim to create possibilities to work with the larger student body community, thereby making an effort to make the community more inclusive, accepting, and attempting to create an all-embracing environment, progressively gaining strength and maturity as more members initiate, join, and participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandini. That was very inspirational. We will now hand it over to Sadhana to give us the concluding panel presentation.
So thank you very much, and thanks to everybody on this session. We'll just move on to the next slide, please. Yeah. So I'm not going to be reading all this, but I think we will share information. I will be sharing my email ID, and whatever information you want, you could connect with me. Flame University is committed to facilitate environmental, social, and economic development to generate positive impact. We've been talking about it, and we believe that education is the key enabler for sustainable development, right? So we are aligned to SDG 4, targets 4.4 and 4.7. So my slide 2 and the next 2 slides would be on target 4.4. Moving on. Yes. Move on, Kritika. Slide 2. Move on to now this is target 4.4. We are talking about skills. No, sorry, the previous. Yes. So we are talking about skills, employment, entrepreneurship, and all of this in target 4.4. And we at Flame University, we do all of this. Like, you know, we believe that employers are seeking all these skills, and it's not just about the academics, and students need to have value-added education, and that's about personal values, goals, purpose, vision, leadership skills, you know, self-awareness, empathy, creative thinking, critical thinking, and all of that, you know, communication, personal. Moving on to the next slide. Kritika?
Is it this one?
Next
or the
slide, please. Yes, this one. So, get back, Kritika, the previous slide. Yes, stay on this. So here, these are our foundation core courses where we help students prepare for life. I mean, it's not about just careers. We do prepare everybody for life, and life skills become so important. Managing to cope with the complexities of life becomes important, and all of this. And if you see these are interdisciplinary. I mean, irrespective of what major or minor you do, like, critical reasoning, public speaking, digital literacy, mental models, and all of this become important. And the next slide. The next two slides, 4 and 5. Next slide. I think the slides are not moving. Slide 4 and 5, we are talking about target 4.7. Like, that's, I think Deepa already spoke about it. And here we are saying that all SDGs are interdependent and it can be better achieved if implemented together. So SDG 4 has interrelations and linkages with other goals like 8, 10, 13, 16, and 17. Okay. And we are doing all of this. And I will just talk about, say, goal 17, global collaborations. So we have research opportunities both for our faculty and students, and they participate in research. And they also participate in national and international conferences. I'd like to say that we'll be hosting a conference on climate change soon on 9th and 10th of December. And I'm happy to also share, I will share all this in the chat box. I'll share the link. One of our students was part of the first ever team. This has happened just very recently, that won IBM score for code challenge. So which invited innovators from across the globe for to combat climate change. And this is about SAF water. By SAF, I mean clean water. Okay. And then our Discover India program is a flagship program. This is on, again, on immersion, cultural immersion. Students undertake field research and to understand the culture, history, and civilization. And these are all credited, which means that, students need to do all this. And these are on our website. Like, please read about the Ganga Ghats of Varanasi, or the conservation of sea turtles. There's a lot of work. So this sensitizes our students to, cultural immersion. And this is, again, our developmental activities program, which is the social immersion part of it, credited and graded. Students have worked with more than 500 NGOs and across 30 states in India. And we have the Flame Bal Bhavan for migrant labor and our construction workers. The children come, they are, I think, 2-year-old children and 2-year-old onwards, they come, and we have a small school for these children. And, many of our students have gone on to, after this experience, have gone on to work with these NGOs. So, and we have one of our students who was, I'll share that link as well. One of our students has set up, she moved on from a very nice corporate job to setting up a social enterprise where in Nagpur, she set up a school. She and her husband, she's now married, they've set up a school and they call it a school for agripreneurs, which means, we are talking about entrepreneurship, and this is a social where children are taught how to, make agriculture their career. That's really very nice. And moving on to the last one, the Flame University IWSA. Move on to the next slide, please.
Sadhana, you have about 30 seconds.
Yes, I will finish. This is my last slide. So inspirations from a remote internship. I will share the details of this, where this is something so interesting, and this, I'm sure many schools can also, I will be very happy to share details about this, where one of our students, Aditi Narayana, during COVID, it was very difficult to do any NGO activity. So she worked with this IWCA organization. This is in Vashi, Mumbai, Navi Mumbai. Okay, and she has prepared online learning modules for children. And I will share all these details. And then there is an ebook and there is a video for, for learning, and, learning becomes more inclusive this way and accessible. And please read about this. And she also earned the opportunity to share her learning on, Mayakavi plantations at the at an online event. All this is there, and then the food preservation project. So we are now, from this we are able to, we can move on from this to experimenting how to work with children online, and how to develop this ebook content and all that. I just have the last slide. Please move on. So Flame also, is quite inclusive. The next slide. The Flame is also very inclusive. So we give us, we have the Center for Wellbeing. We give generous scholarships to students. So the financial, students' family financial situation should not be a concern to, join Flame University. We are quite inclusive, and whether it's we have Center for Wellbeing and all that, and also the scholarships are, we give merit as well as financial aid. Now this is something which we can connect with schools on, and we do all of this. This is like a like a trailer for what we do. And students from across schools in India, and we've had students from, I think this time a student from the Legacy School has won a scholarship to attend this summer immersion program at Flame, where students are exposed, introduced to all of this, climate change and pandemic, conservation of sea turtles, and all these modules will be done on campus. And we would be happy to invite more schools for even talks on all of this. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Sadhana. We have very limited time for questions. I'm going to request Aarti and Kritika to let me know if we can go a few extra minutes over the session time. So from, what we heard from Satya, from feeding, the body for health, to sadhanas, nourishing the minds, to tackling an extremely difficult societal issue and taboos that Nandini talked about, we've seen a plethora of activities that these three wonderful leaders have presented. Was, how do you consider or take key considerations when you're talking about SDGs and career counseling? To me, it's very important, even we as counselors, to see where social justice sits and what is its role in our career guidance. So some of these thought-provoking questions that we can pose is, what can each student or each person be able to do and be post our interventions? So some things to consider is to ask students, what's the type of world they want to live in? What type of global problems or opportunities that they see requires attention? And what are some talents and experiences that they have or they would like to get to help address these problems and in turn improve the condition of our world? And lastly, ask them, what is a cause you're keen to advocate for? And then get into their purpose, sense of purpose and passion, and then work together to identify what professional roles and organizations that they may want to look into, and what is the educational pathway that they may want to take to get there. And one of those pathways could be for our counselors to engage in our Sustainable Development Committee. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, perfect. So we are now asking come one, come all to participate in our Sustainable Development Committee, hosted by this IC3 movement. I've listed the chairs of this committee, and I have the privilege of working with Dr. Uttiyo Ray Chowdhury, who is very, very in designing this panel, who could not, for other reasons, attend and moderate this panel. So lots of gratitude to Uttiyo and to the panelists. And please do take a moment to contact Aarti Nair, who's been the backbone of getting everything organized and presented. Please contact her if you're interested in joining this committee. With that, a big thanks to the IC3 movement, to Jim and Ganesh and Kritika, Aarti, and others who are involved, and to my fellow colleagues, Satya, Sadhana, and Nandini for pulling together an excellent panel. Thank you.